Just kidding, homie. I mean, no beat. I got soft teeth anyway. This is the place where I use the excuse to camp out for the energy with the amplifier you really rap that boundary. No staff at the tame, how lame, man. Lean with the beef, but they cattle enough for Afro-Negro crawls you burn bridges like carbohydrates. I hate to rate the bar of the bear. Standing after the ground the bear to bombard it. Barter system for the patriarchy to miss the mark. Percent for the cumulative, for the redundant enough for the target your cumulative words. And you come to late periods to cycle the ministry. Like I can find a cycle of economies for the dictate. Or who's defining karmic constantly enough for the constellations. Yeah, listen to your pharmaceuticals, that Lone Star Company. Pantry panic enough society, fears sobriety. Isolated from the communities we shape to be and been. Back to ancestry, decency, enough to sense the truth. Scenery for the seer to seek the sense of this. A season shine the Jew, the humanity for the human breath, and you can breathe the hypocrisy. It was hyper aware of the question, he was aware of the able, the place before that for the work hand. Aware, power that, but it was only given for the brought the forefathers. From the feathers of sorry that sought those wings. Grounded for the spread of liberty, for the sounding of profoundly of lucky. Anybody found it, it was the beauty that was lost beyond the wings of heaven and garden. Or like a Latino stereotypes of hornet daddy fights to the karmic counter. Some beat inside the heart for the ride you wave goodbye to. Instead of good to be the buyer, currency the steady state the good into the will for the you can find a rose for the concrete of cemeteries. Commercial cemetery, commentary contrary to the rare circumstance. Circumcised the circumference of the pie of a slice of that evil out of the storm. Who gave a piece of that to do the least amount of proportion? Who cared that for the caretakers that robbed you carefully? Well awareness you were practicing. Sacrament for the offering and marriage to the off the ring, that this a wet, the union, the finite, and not for the infidelity, for the speaking the spell, but when you speak the spoke, the hell the spawn, the spread, the dusk, and dawn, and shadows. Seek to meet the million that week. Weak the meal that they fed, to feed the prayers that I was to pray for the weekend, to the weekend to the short and the high, the need, the negos and the high needs, and those who find and speak the dialect and the live dialogues. Who's the life the reading and the scribe? You secret society with the secret wings you can find stood undefeated for the win, the need to learn to look at the book of life for this written for the road, the light to read the sin. Your wrongdoing for shortcomings of salvation, that's that which love with the rescue for the seeking asylum for the assaults to salt the earth with the side of assistance. Associated for the substance enough to dance in the moonlight. For fire, rhythmic confusion for the fusion of bursting your energy and violence and spontaneous combustion, decade your decoding combination, your sum. To a conglomerate of Anglos and Saxons. They hate the wolf with blue eyes and sacrifice the fate. Wave the burdens and tipples that waited line in the first day. The chronological process of the carbon and quantum figures. Project that evaporate. Entanglement to the beat of motivation that you can fade to relax with the curl of brief. Referees and final references. Just to us, a vast connection negates offenses and offer that offensive. Officials to all be metronomes. Homes to victim vindictive. People that are really not treated as they are, to be as they are, star the state of the stardom. Fame the few, enough for familiarity families. Or famished to the fantasy, eliminated for the imagination, embarked in ambition, the ignitions, and find a render to tender-hearted, or those that departed for the ways of seeing the self. Or parted seas like Moses dealt with the faith, not just to believe or have to know the doubts of this, what you see the patch of this over there, instead of the eyes and whatever happened to what we lead the eyes to love you. Found me the way to be, receive the receipts of conviction to conceive it.
The example, not to be exempt, just to simplify. The promise to the question, it could be the answers. For every leading that's to tell me the promise, and you use critical faculties for the promise to develop your independence in the thought. The promise to educate myself and make their own judgments. If this would be the leaders that would tell me that this would be the only candle in the dark to lead to science, to lead to fiction. I'm not at the contradiction. The contract of the contract has made the contact. We all put that for the waking to death, for the life that puts us to sleep again, for the preparation for the mornings, because of you, for the cause, and you and all, for the forever be true, for the longer you will be the act. But thank you for your love and peace, and I may have the opportunity to receive.
Okay, King was shine.
Receive that, to believe, you will have that faith, that this is what's going on, for the bestow, for the become. We are made that for the one, for the one, for we came for the left, we should all, we crossed the living for the crossroads, we lost. We never found that for the never lose again, for what's gained in your name, for the we attain, your attain, your name, your direction, we came, your absence was the blame for the life of the we flame, the we the faith for the brain, for the been spoken to speaking, enough to get the tape for the living being to the sin, and number the defendant, the vengeance, and other annoyance, and this one anointing for the accusing and the pointing. Elbows and joints burn for the vine to be earned that for the this to be the ignorance and the learning enough of discernment for the confirming and tender harder for the rival of the journey departed for the kissing into the vow I now owe this to see the growth for the looking high to low the fastest so flow enough for the current affirmation the informative for the tender force and an nature to recap the power for the we amp conduits, this would be the duplicate for the crooked demons, and you demonstrate that obtuse and distant opera one for no winning for this one to weight the scale that this be called, the evil to devolve, the problems to solve, for the almighty, for the all right, for what's left of this deciding not for most high, for the subtract to admire, for the missing admission of moose in the mark, for the disclose our eyes, dark to see the light, for the arrow blows out to the bullet, for the enemy within that, for the without, withdrawn for the within to penetrate, this would be the penetration, the right, the righteousness, the defending for the fineness, and this would be the hearts of the treasure, your trust to protect the ribcage. Sacred is the heart for the art, for the there in heaven, for the earth and the scale, for this would be the turf, for the seeds of the dirt, for the foot, for the hurt, for the work, for the birth, for this what is tail, for the soul, for the sin, derive the big part, for the depending on the faith, for the accumulated, for the masturbated, for the evaluated, for the sight, for the might be dark enough, for the light perceived enough, for the one we believe in to be not loose end, for the knots, for the blood, for the land, for the clots, and riding out for the rolling and the rotting, river rotation for the Protestant, for the protesting rights, and that's the way to feel the hunger for the rich to pour out. The counts defeated in eating, and needles of love, to inject that to the love, the heart to depart that for the bad blood, hand that for the lack of the forgiveness and forces that who is bad, for this wood, and burn that for the wool, for the breath, for the still standing never landing, lending your hands and levels of the halls of plea, planning plans of pleasure for the play, apply for the please that for the pleasures, measures that for the lesser leases and marriages, divided divorces and course that couldn't contract the signs and seek to meet with this
transparency transpired,
shortcuts of the length, the wide, hide the found amount for the free throw, for the beat, for the softened teeth, for the jerk that work, for this work that meet the greed, slam that, swam that sea, saw the rock to lock, lose the boost, reclusive enough to induce one's all, prepare for the pain, dissolving for the proper probation nations, rations and ratios and pat the backs of patios, and front for the carpentry, for the penalty, the sentences, penetrate the free to pay for the eighth of treason, reason leaves over trees and trees, leaves, themes, and this and them, themselves and themes, and this and hymns, and that for the 12 grand square, while running for the standard for the profound and loss and origin, original humans and life, the spiritual humanity, been the vanity, not veins in the heart to blame, that this and Amos counts, and this the ladder for the Jacob the fame, for the tams of those the train the band, hinder for the splinter for the hands of this will branch of sections of Christ, of your price, the tax, steal the grabs, and those stove, stop those stagnant for the assistance for the gift of the bliss, the kiss of this, for the midst of death, for the misses for the dish, middle of the deadly bread for the who bread that work before the bread, irony of the table, the elements, your elements, the substance, stands that for the dance, and advance that itself, the basic grace, the beat, the drum, music, the hum, the rhyme, the bond, the solemn saying, the rain, the ears, the disappear, the rhythm of the necessary, the necessities, niece, the aunties, the prophecy, not the net, the prophet, for the deficiency, the degree for the officials, was that referred to referees and reform to refuse, reform, formulate, and subordinate, action, the fees, the feed, the off, the knees, and this the deed for the dead, sleep that for the fleas who fled, flying spells the bread, words to believe for the relief that not leave the ignorance of the darkness and depth of hell that rots and like a helium and soaring over the snore and the roar of the lions. Truth and the agnostic pause. So this is loud, the mouth of the bottom. That drive for the third, So this is dive for the dehydrated, seek for the elevation, 11 for the genes and the generations like the Levi's. Levied enough for the leavening and the devils to take away for the deep for the word for the this to be the evil for the evil, the Jews and Satan, natural Saturday night for the Saturn, time itself. Strong the days, not the weak, to decrease and living for the seasons of the sons of the seed to breathe, to feed, to take, to die for the days, to heat the breath of life.
Or contributing points to interest. Bro, retro react reveals everything from this still revised division to seek to cite the ceremony, matrimonies, and currently for the rent. But it was accurately rated high enough at the stars below the surface of the horizon, bro. It was horizontal to the equilibrium, or the balance of the scales to sail the seas, man. See the scam, skepticism, brother, scheming environments, and you have the human capacity to spirit the house of God. This is the body may have a drink, or blood that stab in the heart for the song. Or maybe you still have a dance for the reflex, man. A light for the might to cast a shadow. Upon that space, absorb the energy it takes. Stein, it was on their own 2 feet enough grounded. These wings I spread in my own solitude. Hello or halo for the high, hail the low. Finite, this day by light. Wake me like the pardon for the part of my biogender, for the basic message for the being mail stamped to my heart, destined for the return to the center, for the render of the heartache, not as a mistake enough to vein the rivers. That didn't reach the destination destined. Heart transplant for another plant me into the breath, for the that came for the before me, for the forefathers is spoken to. Me, without the word to divide, but words preach, broke gaslighting enough ground circuits, circulating on time to watch the waves goodbye. It was good enough for the different, enough for the bad for the by. Speaking enough for the stand, not for what we mean to say for the rather than what we mean. Means the testimony for the money was tested, enough for the faith for the focus on your sight. When God has given rights to propriety, this is spoke, the thoughts are spelled, the existence to the word, for the truth, for the matter, for the provide your proverbs and actions. It will propose that for the not purpose enough deceit for the lies and grades without dispute. Discuss the curse words and using cursive. Written after the whip without the rights and wrongs. Rigging out the call for this and through in the towel. Dry the deserts of thoughts. That were aware enough of the edge of knowing the knowledge. Courage to stand without the wings to soar the pain. It was the injuries or ignorance, racing through the laps of the strips of the answers, and the stripes death to tear down the tears. And that was out of the eye sockets to sock that defeated ambition and ambiguity for the bigger to go. Lies are lies. Height and height, the tolerance for an oxymoronic. Short Negroes will have a be a heightened sense. Sheep, this is a cheap time to spend with anyway. There's just questions and answers. Started for the sentence and a hook at the end of it. The hanging upside down like a trees of hayman letters. A Willie lunch enough the stench to hate. Inch it takes to this to break the leaves. Or rake that falling upon the seasons without the taste. Summer that year for the summoning up the courtship, the ex-border for the imploring the will of fate. Or the borders to negate the reason to protect you from all those bully mirrors in the break room to make you want to come out of the comfort of press answers. Pressing the questions and patterns. Cheek the ass of those two behind the nose to see the you the one too many without the accountability for the timetables and multiply the times. Or adversity to subtract that and subordinate discretion enough for the lesson. You answer those questions without the quest of seeking. The rest of the sleep of the night for the insight for the eyes and close. I don't think that properly this to propose a marriage in words. Or mind-eye union with the complicated communion without the communication. Maybe the community for the common course. You just shut me off. Of course you would. Damn it, it was misunderstood. But who has to offer anyway? You could freestyle. You ain't got to pay for it anyway. I paid the price, or maybe it was Yahweh. From the top of the mountaintops, you can hear my voice for the echo park, and I will never stop for the love of mine. It was pushing up Daisy. I blew it right in her face. It was about time. Time for what? Scatterbrand, enough of the method for taking back that spirit, enough of the brain stir. You could produce that product. Maybe it was that would read me what you can find. Speaking these spells to not articulate the time class and learn to coordinate enough of the subordination of the crime. Intent and outcome for the herbert, the feeling, the pen, the panhandling of enough with the butterfinger. You're biting the words, you chew them out for the digestive provinces, suggestion gestures. Blessing the store supply, the man, the mandatory, satori. It's clouds enough, the rain, the sun, the sending the waters, the sacrament for the sacrifice instead of the adding device to add vice and the subtractive device on what's devastating enough for the consequence. Sequential effect, the cost loss, prevention enough for the apprehend, appreciation, reaching, preaching, Congress, and congregation, till they delegate from God and Brown Bridge. Go engage and shout at the ears of God's listening ranges. Aim for amnesty and needs at the time. Penetrating the pentagram for the pentagrams, this growth of the narrative, the story, the parody of the graphic novels, and the ability to find in your account, moves upon the spot of light. God, applicants to complicated, calling your brothers to stand up. Support the portion of portion, pertaining enough. Or temperatures, trimmer to remorse. We find the course, there's the rouse, the blouse, trousers, the uphold, the gravity, the ground. Security regardless of the credentials, awakening, the credit card, and the remarkable stains, the walls that would make the emotional standards. find fed up with this stuff. Like UPS types, the page of the story, reverse reminder, the coal-fired power is outdated, energy source, enforcement, death, growing, method, enough of the intention without the campsite, or see the sin of the senses more without that. The racist cry out what needed to say, but couldn't hear the sound, sentence, full of advertising, thought, bought, the people to more record that. The agitating health croutons sat about enough to bell with the advertiser adverts in small towns, round cities, and councils, to countries, and those laws that derive from the rivalry to the variables of this age enough to reinstate your reign of knowledge. That's citable subjects of objectivity enough for the inject your peace and opposing without a voice. You couldn't lift the words like you into hell's gates. Gating faith in the fatal attractions, cultivate trackers and farms there themselves enough of them exclusively lucid person, lucid dreams, lucid lace places, this reality for the perceptions and the exemption for example of the amplified enough of infidelity. Violence to the music way down your gravity, the orbital for the consciousness and values. Don't validate that for the park of dark places that can't hear. Read the theater, can't read the signs, ticket the clock. There's no read the sign, this ticket the clock, patience, listen, package that, payback, the verbs, the verbs, the verbs, but over the every little bit of every other different part, being a part of that, the evolution of evil, the pollution enough to take that for the way the breath of the smell of the nose up under the eyes of the mental eats, amendments, and adamant, drumming enough of attitude, forbidden buzz, the auction of actions, the curse of press, the payback, your back, pay, enough of ancestral, electric, starving, and that we find how far we come. Like, have enough the hours to make up for it, because of other facing no medical version of the scary, missing, carrying, across the nail, near sight, that was seen by love. Before the judge can court the house of spouse, this was destined for the marriage, not marriage. Rage and union before that came unbind, adamant, then currency, then the money for the rest of the army. Leading the army to all you can get is wild, it's good, gone, death, doubt, pride, death. The rivals to the lovers, to the lovers, this is thanks to the air, to the rain, rather that remember the rings of fingers of your point. When it acts like you would point the pill to any point, so out of that across the top of the table. Or back past the Adderall for the ladder, but all that jaded. Look at that shepherd is falling. Lost, this is coming for the first, second time. Agitated, reason, relativity, relationships. Or dehydrated or dyed the colors. That aren't black and white in the morning. Without that decided on the side. Say we're painting enough step we set the word. This is the truth of the deep downside, and I've been waiting for you to discover the truth. This is just observing and all these things like that. Make a lot of philosophy, nothing true.
Deprivations privately pry out what needed to say, but couldn't hear the sound, senses, speaking full of advertisers, food, thought, bought.